Hello everybody. Welcome to Ventures Inspirations. I hope everybody's doing well. Thanks for always coming back to watch my videos. I'm so grateful. If you're new here, consider subscribing. And to my previous subscribers, thank you so much for always coming back and supporting me. It's just been a blessing. So in the new year, I wish I could be like a new energized person, like I could take you guys out to the club, out to this restaurant and this museum and travel. And I wish I had my health, because in my videos, you guys would just really adore it. It really would. I would just put you on adventure after adventure after adventure. Yeah, I mean, I've been really trying to put you guys on adventures within my house, within my life, but it's really difficult, especially moving and moving. And then I just moved and I'm not happy here, so I'm gonna move again. But I don't think I'm gonna break my lease this time, because that's just a bit too much, moving too much. So I'm gonna at least continue the lease, and then I just won't sign a new lease. Yeah. So anyway, today's video is based on Victorian jewelry, and to to my surprise, I never knew that Queen Victoria was the concept of Victorian jewelry. I never knew. I knew she had some affiliation, but I never knew that it was just all because of her and her influence and her style and fashion and her enthusiasm. I never knew. And of course, the Industrial Revolution had played a part in it too, because people had a lot of wealth because there was so much new technology being built. So Queen Victoria, and I wrote it down because I knew I wouldn't remember, because I don't know much about Queen Victoria. I know more about the new queens, like her great granddaughters, and stuff like that, the stuff that we see now. Yeah. Um, so the Victorian era basically focused on Queen Victoria's attention to detail. She accessed the British throne from 1837 into January of 1901. And of course, that was because it was her death. So she was on the throne for 63 years. Could you imagine having all that royalty and compassion and people slaving over you, and you don't have to really do much but just show up? Could you imagine for 63 years? I mean, of course, the end, she probably was older, and she didn't do much, but still, that must have been a great life. But then I often wonder, what's a great life? Because it's a lot. It really is. There's a lot of responsibilities and so on and so forth. And then you got to deal with all those people in your house every day. I don't know how, I don't like people in my house. Okay. And so during this time, there was lots of social and political reform, which is what I talked about. The Industrial Revolution, it brought on a lot of new technology, and so people had lots and lots and lots of wealth. That's why they were dressed so fancy and stuff, because they were able to buy everything, the fabrics and stuff. And I'm wearing a Victorian dress. Well, this was the closest dress that I had to a Victorian. It has these flare sleeves. Now, they really didn't wear flare sleeves, but this was all I had, so I just wanted to, inspire the video. It's a cute little I always thought it was Victorian until I started Googling Queen Victoria, and she really didn't wear dresses with flare bottoms, sleeves, but she did every now and then, but it wasn't like her fashion statement. And far as jewelry was concerned, it was lots of black and white jewelry, yellow metals, which was like gold or like gold plated, and white diamonds, black stones, agate, turquoise, pearls, and coral. And that was new to me. I didn't know that they were wearing turquoise and agate, in these castles. I really just didn't know that. Since Victoria was a queen, she wore emeralds. Okay, so those the list that I just went through, that was what a lot of people were wearing because of the wealth, the growing of the wealth. But since Victoria was a queen, since Queen Victoria was a queen, she wore emeralds, sapphires, diamonds, and pearls, which was, how could I say, it was like considered royal use. Yeah. She brought upon a romantic period, the romantic, vision through jewelry. It was like lots of lockets, hearts, bugs, flowers, which was romantic and also grand inside. So they wore a lot of grand jewelry. After the death of her husband, Prince Albert, she mourned. Therefore, mourning jewelry became extremely popular. And that's why I wore all black, because I wanted to inspire her mourning period. This lady mourned for years. Like, she really loved and cherished her husband. She mourned and mourned. And I know about that issue, about the mourning jewelry. I didn't know it was inspired by her, but I know that she mourned for a long period of time from her husband. And so mourning jewelry became real popular, and that's why we're able to collect pieces of mourning jewelry to this day because of Queen Victoria. Did you guys know that? I never knew that. I didn't know that Victorian jewelry was named after Victoria. I never knew that. I promise you guys. And that's why, I always like to be truthful on my channel. So if I don't know, I don't know. It is what it is. I think that's all that I had. The morning jewelry, of course, was black, and that's why I have on a black cameo. It's a choker cameo set with the clip-on matching earrings. Yeah, if she would have wore something just like this, most likely the earrings would have been bigger, or maybe with diamonds wrapped around. And I'm talking about big diamonds. This lady, she wore big, big, big jewelry, and it was a fashion statement. Yes. And then she dressed in all black, constantly with black hats, all type of things. But anyway, let's get into the jewelry, and I hope you'll like it. I put together a lot of pieces. A lot of pieces that I have are not original to the Victorian period, but it's a reproduction or a copy. And so I'm just giving you an example so you can kind of get an idea of what Victorian jewelry is all about. Okay, so let's get to it. Okay, guys, here we are. I wish there was a way where I could stand and show the pieces where you could see me talking, but when I do stuff like that, you don't get to see the pieces as good as you do when it's in my hand, especially when I'm using the black background. So just bear with me. In fact, let me use my lint brush on this black piece, this velvet, so it tends to get lint. Just so hard to come out. In fact, you don't really see it till it's under the light. See? You can see it. It looks like fuzz, but I don't see it here. Yeah. Okay, so I guess we'll start with the Asian pieces, kind of pulling me right here. And this is a beautiful Asian piece, and like I said, she wore things with coral. Not necessarily a jade, but they did have the Asian pieces were expired through the Victorian era, because this is a Victorian piece, although it's Asian. Yeah. So she would have wore something like this, but it would have been much grander in size. Like this little fish would have been bigger. And of course, the coral pieces would have been more longer and wider. But she definitely wore things with filigree. She's the one that made filigree. Well, she didn't make filigree. Filigree had came back from, like I said before, the Empire period. But she brought it back. It was a like a revision of filigree jewelry, because it, like I said, she bought things with flowers and things like that, birds and all of that stuff. So filigree, they're able to make designs out of birds and flowers and so on and so forth. Yeah, and most likely it would have been in gold. Excuse me. So like I said before, a lot of these pieces that I have are not Victorian. This piece is Victorian, but Queen Victoria, she was more fancy. She wore grander pieces because she was a queen. So this is too normal in size. So I'm just trying to let you know that. But this is definitely an original Victorian piece. It has all the attributes, all the attributes. And then we have this Asian piece. And she would have wore something just like this. She would have put it in her hair, on a dress or a jacket, or on a hat. And one thing I loved about Queen Victoria, she brought in the lower dresses where you could show like your openness to your neck area. Because prior to Queen Victoria, the women were wearing collars all the way up to their chin, even the men. And so she kind of pulled it down some and put necklaces, and you could see the necklaces. So she would have definitely wore something like this, the exact same size, because this is grand. And it has filigree in it. All these little petals. Let me show you. All these little petals, those are all filigrees. And then it's the exact um, color. It's the gold color. She bought gold and gold plated pieces. That's what she just loved to wear, gold. And this is a gold plated piece though, because it has no mark. And the back it says China. So that's how you know. That's how you can date it, saying it's an Asian piece. But not just because it says China, because lots of things say China and it's not an Asian piece, but or Asian inspired. But this has all the characteristics of the Victorian period and then the Asian put together. Beautiful four flowers and then some stripes going through it. Just gorgeous. Beautiful piece. One of my favorite Victorian pieces. She would have definitely wore something like this, even this size, a camel. Even if she didn't wear it, Prince Albert would have wore something like this because this is more masculine. She was very feminine. But maybe she was out and about. She might have wanted to wear something like this, and it has that C class. Let me see something. Yeah, this has the C class too. What do we do next? Okay, she would have worn pieces like this in the same tone, but of course her pieces were gold. And like you see these little rhinestones, no, she did not. She didn't wear rhinestones. She was not into rhinestones. She was into diamonds, and big cluster pieces, sapphires, like the pieces in the middle. She would have wore pieces like this with the piece in the middle, and on the side it would have been some more big pieces or none at all. But these little pieces would not be there. So these are Victorian style and fashion, but they're not from that original period here. This is just to give you an idea of pieces that she wore. And definitely the color, sapphires and emeralds. Definitely these colors. That's why they made these pieces like this to mimic that era of Victorian jewelry. They know what they were wearing. They were wearing emeralds and sapphires. And that's why these pieces come in blue and green. Blue being the sapphire and green being the emerald. And it definitely wouldn't have had, I don't think these lighter color greens. I don't think so, not at all. Um, and she definitely wore things like this. It would have been in gold and it would have been real pearls and a real onyx or another stone like the agate or the turquoise or the coral. Yeah, but something just like this she would have wore. This is the exact size. It's kind of like a perfect mimic of the Victorian era. And again, that's not from the Victorian piece. It's just an inspiration piece so I can give you an idea of what they were wearing in that period. This is an older piece than that one, but still, this is not Victorian. This is not original. But she would have wore something just like this, bigger. It had to have been bigger. This is too small for Queen Victoria. And these pearls would have been bigger, and they definitely would have been real. And she loved her pearls, so she would have definitely wore something like this, but that it would have been much bigger, but the same tone, the gold, definitely something like that, and with the same little style. And they had those Edwardian influences coming through, and a little bit of the Art Nouveau too. But she loved her like, let me see, Edward. Okay, like here's an Edwardian piece. It's not an original, but this is something she would have wore. And this is either glass or, milk glass or porcelain. I'm not sure. It's hand painted. And that's going to be, what's her name? No. Okay. All right, I'm back here. Somebody was at the door. Had an Amazon package. But it was just in time because I was able to look it up. That's Maria Antoinette. Yeah, it's a cute hand painted piece with some beautiful aurora borealis. Um, this is not in the fashion of Queen Victoria because of the rhinestones going around. If she was to wear something like this, it would just be the pendant without these rhinestones, and then the pearls would have been bigger. But all the filigree, on the sides and in the back would have been original to that period. I thought this was actually a Art Nouveau piece, but it's not. It's a reproduction. So that was a disappointment because I thought that was an original piece because of the hand painting. Yeah. And she would have wore something like this too, maybe a portrait of herself. Yeah, this is another queen. That's Queen. What's her name? See, I can't remember all their names, but that's another queen. She was queen for a long time, but she would have wore something just like that. But it would have been a picture of herself, or when she was mourning, she would wear this with that black background with a picture of her husband. Yeah, and she definitely wore stuff like this. She loved her garnets and her rubies. They would have been much bigger pieces though. And these diamonds all around would have been bigger diamonds. But she had some beautiful pieces just like this. But remember, this is small. She would have something much bigger. Keep in mind, her jewelry was so grand. And she loved cameos. Do I have any cameos? Yeah, I have a couple cameos. She loved her cameos. She was very popular. She wore cameos, even the black ones, when her husband died. She loved cameos. This would be something like, that's probably Prince Albert in there, and that might have been what she would wear, but most likely it was bigger. Even this piece, that's too small. She wouldn't have worn. And during the Victorian period, they had bigger pieces. So I didn't bring a big cameo, but it would have been a bigger one like this. Same kind of style, but it would have been in gold. Yeah, it wouldn't have been sterling. It would have been in gold, the cameos. Something more like this with the filigree going around, but the inside would have been much bigger. And they didn't have this they didn't use this Queen Victoria, this tortoise shell. She didn't use that, but that filigree going around that cameo, that was what she would wear. And she wore something like this in black, but it was bigger of her husband when she was in mourning. She was in mourning for a long time, up until her death, I believe. This is actually a locket to put your perfume in there. Yeah, it's like some solid perfume, and you go in there and rub it on you. What's next? I didn't bring a watch. I thought I was bringing my watch. Oh, here's another cameo. She would have wore a bracelet like this, but it would have been much bigger. I mean, this wouldn't have been too much bigger, but the piece in the middle would have been much bigger. But that's definitely Victorian style with the filigree and then the flowers again. Um, Very, very popular at that time. Very, very popular. Much bigger cameo. The cameo for the bracelet would have been about this size. Yeah, something like that. That's how it would have looked with the same band, the filigree band. I have a few more filigree pieces because she just loved filigree. She really did. Um, the flower inspiration. That's why we say that these pieces are Victorian, because they were inspired during that period from Queen Victoria. And of course, she would have wore something like this. It would have been more of a coral or a garnet, something like that. But she would wear pieces like that with the filigree going around. And she definitely wore lockets. Lockets were quite popular in that time period. I'm sure she had quite a few. Do I yeah, have a couple of lockets? And then they went into hearts. You know, because the sweetheart jewelry, she had tons of that sweetheart jewelry. She made it very, very popular and gave it a revision at that. So she had tons of this sweetheart jewelry. And I got this beautiful piece in a grab bag. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece. It opens up, but I'm not sure how to get it open. I can see the hinges, but I still don't know how to open it. And those were gifts from people at the war, or if you just want to give it to your sweetheart. I'm sure her husband bought her tons of that. She would have had a locket like this, but it would have been much bigger. And I have a big heart locket. I should have, you know what, it's right here. Let me just grab it real quick. So she would have wore something more like this. It would have been pure gold. This is brass. Yeah, you see it's a pendant. She would have wore something like that. It has this beautiful design on it. Beautiful. It kind of looks like a paisley design. And of course, they had paisley fabrics back then, so they were putting it on the jewelry as well. I don't know if this piece dates back that far. I really can't tell, but perhaps. The hinges look right. This on here looks right. It could be from the Victorian period. I'm not 100% sure, so I can't give you that information. But it definitely looks vintage. It looks like from that period. And she loved her lockets. This would have been one she would have wore during mourning with the black and gold with the flowers. Definitely she would have wore that. It would have been bigger though. This is about the size she would wear them, about that size. And that has a little garnet in it. And all these pieces are either gold or gold plated. I think this is the one that's plated. The rest are gold. And when I say plated, I mean like 10 carat, We all talk about gold differently. This is a cute little, when I got the heart, the big heart, I saw this next to it. This is a piece too. It's a very old piece. It's Asian inspired, which I found out. And it's a pocket mirror. How does it open? It slides open. It has a great value too. Yeah, I didn't realize it has a great value. It's an Asian piece. And this has a name. I always forget the name of this flower. What's the name of it? I can't think of it. This is a beautiful piece too. She would have wore something like this for her mirror. About that size too. And the flower and the heart. I believe this is original Victorian piece. I'd have to Google it, but I think I'm 100% sure on that one. You can tell by let me show it to you. You can tell by this flower. It's something cantilever, something like that. I can't remember it. And I thought it was an Art Nouveau piece, but doing some, you can Google anything now. It's not. It's an Asian piece. Because, it's moving, so that's why I thought it was Art Nouveau, but it's actually an Asian piece, and I believe it's from the Victorian period, with the black in the background. It has all the characteristics, but, you're not 100% sure with these pieces. Google helps you somewhat. They kind of go with what they have online, what another person put, so you just never know. Let's see what else. She would have wore, when she was in mourning. Now we'll do mourning. Let's finish some more pieces first. And we'll do the mourning pieces then. She would have definitely wore something like this. And this would have been the exact size. But they wouldn't have been glass. They would have been diamonds. Yes. Wow, these with diamonds would be worth some cash. And it would have been set in gold. Yes, but she would have wore something just like that. I still haven't found the chain for this. So if you're new here, I bought this from a friend of mine a long time ago. It just needs a chain. It has the little circles on each end. I just need to find a chain. But you gotta have the exact chain to go with these beautiful crystals. I mean, you gotta have that right piece, and I just haven't had it yet. But once I get it, I'll put it on you and I can start wearing it. I really want to wear it. I just can't find a necklace to it. She also would have worn necklaces with this swag inspiration, but it would have been much bigger. I know you guys are tired of me saying that, but I have to because it's just kind of I don't have the actual pieces, so I don't want you to think that this is what she was wearing. She was wearing this during her mourning period. Oh gosh, I said I was going to save the morning. Okay, we'll just do the mornings right now. Because she mourned for a long time. I mean, this lady loved her husband. She was depressed, and I don't blame her. Because I'm sure they were really close, And she didn't have much. Because she probably didn't have much of a life. I mean, what could you really possibly do as a queen? Because you have to be a certain figure. Yeah, so it's not much you could do. but she would have wore something just like that, and it would have been onyx, black onyx. They didn't have, I don't, they had, but she didn't wear tie spinel. And they would have been onyx, and it would have been a bigger pendant, but just like that, with earrings, with matching earrings. And I got these beautiful swag earrings in a grab bag recently. They are beautiful. And they have quite value on them too. They're kind of heavy though. I don't know. I guess that's why they was in there, because you really can't wear them. Pull your earlobe. Um, I guess you can wear them for a couple of hours. Aren't they beautiful? That's tie spinel. Should have wore something just like this. But the rhinestones would have been bigger. It wouldn't have been like, see, like this little bar here has what, 6 rhinestones? It would have just been 2. So she'd have wore something like similar to that, but it wouldn't have had those little. They didn't wear little rhinestones. Everything that she wore was big. It was big like this size. And this would have been like a headband, and this is what she would have had all around. And most likely she would have had garnets or emeralds or sapphires, but it would have looked just like this. Of course, this is just a cheap little, piece. I mean, it's really nicely made, though. It's a headband. And, of course, she wore tons of queen things on her head, which was really, really nice. Had all type of rubies in it and turquoise pieces and just beautiful big pieces. Could you imagine something like this going all the way around, or even on a crown? Isn't that beautiful? I know I have not yet to find me a nice crown. I had one a long time ago, but it wasn't what I was interested in, so I sold it. But now I kind of wish I kept it, but that always happens. And this is some of the pieces she would have wore when she was mourning. Pieces just like this, kind of in this size too, with this gold tone. She loved to wear stuff like that. And this is a piece you would put a piece of hair in. So she definitely would have wore a piece like that with her husband's hair. It would have been a bigger piece. And she would have wore something similar to this, minus the marcasites going around. But the onyx on the inside she would have wore, but they didn't do little tiny. If she had stones going around, it would have been a bigger piece of stone. She would have wore something like this, but it would have been in a gold tone color. And then of course something like this she would have wore during her mourning, with a it has a cute little rose and a cute little dangle, but the dangle would have been much bigger, and so would have been this black onyx piece. She would have wore something like that in her hair, because it clips on. So you would, see, it's a pin. You can clip it on your shirt or most likely in the hair. And here's another pair of dangle earrings. These are much lighter. They're not as nice as the other ones. Has a beautiful flower here. Should have wore something like this, but the flower wouldn't have had these little petals. It would just have one big stone, and then the dangles would have been bigger. I'm assuming her ears were I guess when she came out, time she went back in, she took off the earrings, because I know her earrings were probably kind of heavy sometimes. And she would have wore something similar to this. It just, I think they would have been kind of turned the other way, flat down, sort of like the headband I just showed you, sort of like that, and like a crown shaped jewelry. And and this is tie spinel, but I'm just kind of giving you an idea of things that she would have wore when she was in mourning. I have a few more here. She would have wore similar pieces, but bigger pieces, and they would have had cameos on them. What could we do next? And she would wear stuff like this in gold with garnets. She would definitely wear something like that. That's definitely a Victorian piece. It has the flower. I thought this was an Art Nouveau piece, but it's Victorian. She would have wore something like this. Even this size is kind of exact. That's a big stone, so she would have wore something just like that. Queen Victoria, she was a very fancy lady. She loved her pearls. I got some pearls right here. She loved her pearls. In fact, her pearls would have been even bigger. And then she wore beautiful pearls in her hair. like hair accessories, stuff like this. She loved pearl accessories with onyx, and even she had pieces like this with diamonds and pearls, and she would wear things like that. Mostly she wore a lot of crowns. She even had some brooches similar to that. And these are all imitation pearl. And she would have wore something like this in her hair, but it would have been gold with the onyx. This is a very grand clip. Of course, it didn't have a clip like that in the back. So this is definitely not a Victorian piece, but she would have wore something in that fashion, maybe a bit more feminine. And she definitely wore stick pins like this. Stick pins and, one with a pearl. It would have been pearl and diamonds. And this wouldn't have been like this glass piece. It would have been more like a piece of onyx or coral. I also have a pearl bracelet here. Guess I can put it on. Let's see. It's hard to put on for one person. How do you put it on? Let me see. So a lot of times when I want to put on jewelry, I can't wear it because I can't get it on. I'm like, I wish I had a husband. He can put it on for me. Okay, I'm almost getting it. I actually got it. It pinched my hair, but I actually got it. And she would have definitely wore stuff like that. This may just be a Victorian piece. It's really, really old. I'm not sure. You can tell too from that string, when that string is all dark and black. Okay, what else we got here? Here's another pearl piece. Should have wore something like that. Most likely a little bigger, and the little rhinestones wouldn't have existed. Just these bigger ones. Maybe something like this during her mourning, when she was in mourning. That's a nice big chunky piece. Here's another piece that Victorian women wore. I'm not sure if Queen Victoria wore that because she had a lot of crowns. Remember, she was a queen, but they would wear pieces like this. And I'm sure this is not an original piece, but it's not a new piece either. I got that in a grab bag a while back. And they were into insects too. They were bringing a revival from insect pins, so she would have wore stuff like this, but bigger ones, much bigger, because that stone would have to be a real garnet or a real sapphire with a real emerald, and it had to be a bigger piece because she was a queen and she had, the castle, they had tons of money, government and all, so they could splurge. She would have even wore a necklace like this. Let me put it on the necklace holder. But it would have been much bigger, of course. Okay, I'm just trying to get it where it could lay frontwards. She'd have wore something like this. It would have been in gold. Would have been in gold. And of course the garnets would have been much bigger, but that flower would have been perfect. Oops. See, I was telling you about these new necklace holders. They're so cheap. One just fell backwards. That's okay. She'd have wore something like this too during her mourning period. Some big bulky rings like that. Yeah, that's kind of perfect to what she would be wearing. That with the pearls is kind of perfect. And again, things in her hair. She would wear pearls. Now, she wouldn't have these rhinestones. Just the pearl. And then this pearl would have been bigger. And then she would wear something like this with a flower and a pearl with gold. And the pearl would have been about that size, maybe a bit bigger. But she would wear pieces like that in her hair. When she did her hair. This was very popular too, and then I had another piece, and I meant to get it, but I didn't because I don't see it. This type of mammogram script. What is it called? Mammogram, right? Yeah, I think that mammograms. Okay, well, somebody will let me know in the comments. It was very popular at this time, and she wore lots of it, but of course, bigger pieces. This might be kind of a good size. It's not too little, but I had a bigger one, and I can't. I meant to get it, but I didn't get it. Yeah. What else did she wear? She did like gemstones as well. Um, it would have been like a big stone like this, a opal, but it would have been in a more shape like that one, because this is definitely not a Victorian shape or style. This is more of what she would be wearing, something look like that. But it would be the stone in this one would be as big as that. So that's why I got that for comparison. And she would have had some garnet earrings like this, about this size, maybe a little bigger. You know, they couldn't have been too bigger because it would pull her ears down, but she would wear stuff like that. She would wear them in green. It would be the emeralds, and then the blue sapphires, and then this is like a garnet and a purple. I don't think she was wearing purples, but she definitely was wearing the garnets. And she would wear filigree belts and pocketbooks and stuff kind of out of this type of material with that filigree look. This is a belt buckle. I still don't know who made it or where it's from. It's a beautiful piece. And beading was very, very popular. She loved her fashion pocketbooks, belts, shoes, little shawls she was wearing. It was always beaded or lace. And it would be similar to something like this, with this beading technique. So she would have a purse similar to this. Not necessarily this shape though. This is more of an Art Deco style. Her bag would have been more like a open bag, like a sash. Yeah, they were wearing more like sashes. But it would be that same beaded look. These are just things I have for inspiration. These are not Victorian. But the beading was what was pulling me to show you that they love the beadings. The backs would be similar to this, but more open. Like it would come to this size. You know, it'd be about that size. And a lot of them had drawstrings. And this is a cute little neck collar. I guess I can put it on here since the necklace fell off. So, and I'm not sure how you wear it. I don't know if the hook goes in the back. And so you wear it like this. Or I'm guessing, no, it doesn't look right like that. Okay, it goes this way. All right. Yeah, it goes that way. I can barely show you. You know what? Let me get a smaller necklace holder. This way I can show you. I mean, I can easily just stop the video and move the camera, but I don't feel like that, because I can just get a different view. But that's what it would look like that. The pearls would have been bigger, and but they would have this type of beading on it. Not necessarily these little things. This is more Art Deco, these little uh, plastic little things. It would be beading though, so it'd be more like the beading purse I showed you, but in this style with the pearls around. It's a cute piece. I don't remember where I got it. I don't remember where I got it, but I've had it all these years. I've never worn it. In fact, I should have had it on today with my outfit. That would have made it look nicer. Okay, I think I have one more piece here. Well, a couple more pieces. This is a piece I got in a grab bag lately. It's so cheaply made, but it definitely has the Victorian inspiration. I mean, it's like dead on, and she would have definitely wore this during her mourning period. So beautiful. 9 out of 10, it would have had a cameo right here. Let me show you. It's been something like that. Yeah, that's Queen Victoria. That's the type of style she liked, just like that. And of course, this would have been black. I guess the one that I have on would go perfect with this necklace. And then they like little clutches like this too, with the beading on it. And this is definitely that Victorian looking fashion. This would have had a chain, or they would have put it inside a clutch purse. Yeah, those women back then, they had the big back sides that used to come up out of their skirts. I forget the name of it. But what they do is they put like coils and wires in their buttock area, and it pushes their dresses all the way up, and then the seamstress would sew the dresses up and high. I'm not sure what were they trying to get men's attention. I'm not sure, but that was the fashion back then. Yeah, I'm looking at this piece here, and this is kind of making me think of Queen Victoria. She would have pieces like this. Most likely would be pearls and diamonds, but she would wear pieces like that. Yeah. Okay, anything else here? Let me just double check. Oh, here's a piece that I just got. And she definitely would have wore something like this. A little purse. It would have been gold though. Yeah, she didn't rock sterling because she was a queen. So she had to be sophisticated, Yeah, but she would have definitely wore something like that. After that video, when I found this purse, I realized it's on such a beautiful necklace. Okay, so this is the holder there, and then the necklace is attached to that. But I just love the way this necklace is that I can show you. Let me put it on this black background so you can see. It has different levels. Now, normally necklaces have different levels, but this one's a little special. It has these circles. See one there, so you can hook the hook there, or there, and then you have the dangle on the back. I thought that was so cute. And it even hooks to the last one, so you have no dangle on the back. I never saw nothing like that. I always just see pieces where you can. I mean, it has different levels, but nothing where it has a chain and different hooks like that. That's definitely Victorian. Now, that's an original Victorian piece. I just got that, right? In the last grab bag, if I'm not mistaken. Grab jar, rather. um, she would have wore something similar to this, but again, it wouldn't have had these rhinestones. It would have just been some big old diamonds, but her clocks, she would have wore, she would have had something similar. Just an ideal. And I have another vintage purse. This one is filigree. Doesn't have the necklace though, but it's a gorgeous piece. Um, Gorgeous piece. Definitely Victorian. I think if she would have had this, hers would have been bigger though. That's just kind of a normal size pendant. It would have been just as big as the other one. Let me show you the difference in the sizes together. Yeah. So I think when I got this piece, I was telling you I had another one. There she is. Yes, and I got to get her a necklace. I have tons of sterling silver necklaces I can easily put one. But I love the filigree. It's flowers with a band. And that's definitely Victorian, those flowers. Because remember, they've been doing filigree, but they weren't doing filigree out of flowers. She brought that on because she was wearing flowers and all that type of stuff. And then so they started making filigree out of pieces like that. And then they were selling a lot, because of the new wealth coming in because of all the industrial revolution. And people were making a lot of money from that. Okay, I'm looking here. I think we went over everything. Here's another little watch she would have wore, on her neck. But it would have been a bigger one. If she had one, she would have wore a bigger one. And I think we covered everything. I think we covered everything. So they wore a lot of pearls, diamonds, sapphires, earrings. I didn't bring a turquoise piece. I should have done that. Let me see what else is in here. Oh, these are some earrings, and I believe she would have wore something just like this, but it would have been gold plated, not in sterling. And then she might have had something like this, and they would have been in gold plated or gold, but she would have definitely wore. This size is kind of perfect, nice and grand and big. And she would have definitely had some green ones because she loved emeralds. She might have had some earrings like this too with the filigrees, but they would have had to been bigger. Because these are just too slender. It would have had to been, the flower would have had to been bigger. Yeah, but she would have wore something like that. And this is definitely from the Victorian period. These may have even been hers. Who knows? You'll never know. She didn't sign her jewelry. There is some jewelry that people know that was hers because it was sold at auction as her jewelry. But other than that, you don't know. People working for her, I'm sure they took a piece here and there. Because people work for me, they take pieces. So sure the same thing happened to her, and they may have sold it. Might have went to it might have went to someone's aunt, and the aunt might have sold it to a neighbor. Neighbor might have sold to a farmer. Farmer might have traveled, and you know what I'm saying. So you just never know what you have. You really don't. I mean, like this beautiful piece here, this could have actually been her piece. We never know. You just never know. But I do know that some Victorian lady owned this piece and wore it. That's what I do know. Other than that, you don't know. You don't know. Even like this piece here, some Victorian lady wore that piece. This camel, I don't know. I guess a lady would have wore it because they went to animals. I guess when they were going out in the wintertime. She also would wear a little. I showed those two little insects. Here was another one, and that was she would have had a real pearl in hers. This is perfect size too to a little animal pin. She would have worn. Nah, maybe a little bigger. But I think that's about it. You get the idea. I'm just trying to give you a vision so when you're out, you know what to look for Victoria jewelry. Remember, look for the filigree pieces. If you can find the bigger pieces, like that big ostrich that I have. No, not ostrich. Peacock. She would wear something like that because it's a bigger statement piece. So you can find some bigger. If you can get a filigree flower bigger than that, oh man, it's dead on Victorian stuff. And of course, these little lockets, these pocketbooks, the watches, and of course this locket. Like these are definitely Victorian pieces. So look for stuff like that. You can also look for knockoffs, like something like this. This is like a beautiful piece, very grand in nature, and it has that castle palace look, Queen Victorian look. So, look for pieces like this. And it's not good always to wear expensive jewelry when you go out. You don't want somebody snatching it off of you or trying to attack you for it. So it's good to buy cheaper pieces like this too. I would have never actually bought a piece like this. 9 out of 10, I got this in a grab bag years ago. Yeah, I don't think I would have ever bought anything like that. Even like a piece like this. I don't think I would spend the money. I don't know, this one's kind of pretty. I may have. It wasn't terribly expensive. And then don't forget to buy the black jewelry, the mourning pieces. Very, 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 very important to the Victorian period because she was in mourning for centuries. Like I said, I think she was in mourning up until she passed away. She might have had one little comeback, then she was back mourning. But don't forget those black pieces. Pieces look like this, but even with bigger stones. And I have a few. I just didn't pull them out. But you want to look for pieces like that, and of course, beautiful pieces like this, because this is exactly what a Victorian lady would wear. And if you can get one in sapphire or emeralds or even garnet or diamonds, a real one, then that's a real beautiful addition to your collection. I'm sure you could probably find most of these pieces online, especially the sweetheart pieces and the lockets and the filigree pieces. I still can't seem to find one to this. I don't think I ever will. Well, I think I will because of Google. I think I will find one eventually. Just not right now. Maybe in another couple months or maybe next week somebody will put one on. I know other people have it, but this is beautiful filigree. I don't know if you can see it. It's not coming. Okay, right here. All of this is filigree. It's a flower. Isn't it beautiful? And this is real coral stone. It's a beautiful piece. If it was gold, it would be awesome, but it's not. It's just metal, and it says China. And I always thought this was a Victorian piece, but Googling, it's a Victorian Asian-inspired piece. I didn't know it was Asian, but it's made in China, so duh. Yeah, so look out for that made in China on your jewelry. It doesn't always mean that the piece is cheap. So you got to check it out because the person who gave me this, well, I bought it. Yeah, the person that gave it to me, the person that sold it to me, I don't think they realized how beautiful the piece was. They just saw China and they were thinking cheap, 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 you know. Uh, but no, this is a very vintage piece. I mean, it's a Victorian. You know what? I'm looking at it. It does have a C class, but I'm not sure if this is original to the Victorian period. I'm not sure. I don't see why it wouldn't be though. I mean, that mark looks like it. Anyway, I Googled, I couldn't find this, but I found some like just had this flower with the same coral, and it was just like a pendant, and it's saying that it's original to Victorian piece. It has the same China mark, but I'm not 100% sure. I think there may be reproductions. Great reproduction though. I don't know. I think it's original just by looking at it. What do you guys think? Let me know what you think. I wish more people would comment. Um, I think this might be my last video until the weather gets hot. Yeah, because then I can do garden things. Because no one's watching my videos really, so it doesn't really make any sense for me to do all of this. But this brings joy to me, you know, and gets me out of the bed and sitting. So that's why I like to come in here and mess around and set stuff up and do a little Googling and stuff. It kind of gives me a life because I have such a small life. And then the comments that I do receive are so special and dear to me. Those people are such sweethearts. Um, but I don't know. I may just stop because, like I said, I'm not going to stay here. So I may just start packing up all my jewelry again. I know it's sad. I know. And you guys are going to be saying, why are you moving again? Well, I can't. The guy next door, he chops wood every day. And I know it's probably just in the wintertime, but I've lived next door to people who chop wood for their fireplace. They might chop it once or twice a month. This guy goes out and sometimes he starts at 7 in the morning. He starts chopping and then um it's just crazy. It really is. And so I went down there to see what he was doing and he said he sells it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. You know, and this I tell you, man, you rent these houses, you always wonder why did the people move? And so you can't find out until you move in. So I wish that they would just let you move in for a month to see if you want to stay and then you sign the lease. They need to really start doing that because people are so unhappy. You know, you move in, you sign a lease, and then you're not happy. Um, Anyway, he told me to get the F away from his house. I'm not going to stop him because this is the way he makes his living. And he's renting a room from the house next door. And he said, in fact, he's going to buy a bigger power tool that's going to blow my brains away. Because I told him I get migraines. Like, why would you say that to your neighbor? He is a horrible person. He's a horrible person. But I'm sure he's going to get what's coming to him. And yeah, but he's been disturbing me, and I've been having a lot of migraines. So I just don't know. I can't just stay here another year. So I'm guessing he'll stop in February because people don't buy wood after February because you can't run the fireplace. It's just too hot, especially here in Georgia. So I was going to break the lease, but I said I think I could handle to February, and then I'll just stay. And then when my lease is up, I won't sign a new one. Yeah, but I'm not going to break this lease. I can't go through that again. I just broke my last lease, but so I don't know what I'm going to do. I really don't. I'm lost. I'm really lost. If anyone has any ideas, please let me know. Any inspiration. Oh, I also wanted to show the jewelry cases because she would have had things like this. Yeah, I'm glad I sat here yapping my big mouth. Yeah, she would have had jewelry cases like that with her morning jewelry. That's why I put the morning jewelry inside. These are beautiful. It has this beautiful filigree. And I believe, matter of fact, I'm definitely, these are definitely from the Victorian era, right? Or are they reproductions? No, these are old pieces, yeah. And she would have had something like this. Now, in her jewelry boxes definitely would have been sterling. Or gold plated with the heart and the flowers. Definitely things that she would have had in her bedroom. Here's another one. And I've shown all my jewelry boxes, so if you're interested, you can go back. This is a beautiful one. Kind of mimics this piece with the filigree. Cute, beautiful piece with the velvet. Always try to find the ones with the beveled glass. All my glass pieces have beveled glass on it. I don't know if you can see it. It's a rim on top of the glass. Even when you're buying a antique mirror or a Victorian piece of mirror, make sure it has that beveled glass, because if it has beveled glass, it's a higher end piece. You don't want to buy something cheaply made. And of course, something like this in sterling with the flowers, she would have wore something like this. Oh, I had rings in here too. I forgot. Forgot all about it. Yeah, she would have wore rings like this. Not purple though. She wasn't into amethyst, but she would have wore a ring like that with her pearls. She would have definitely had a diamond ring, but she would have had a bigger stone, much, much bigger stone. And even something like this. This is definitely a Victorian style, but it would have been a bigger diamond. And then with the garnet, this is not a garnet stone, but she would have wore something like that with a garnet stone. Yeah, about that size. That might be a good size. But the diamonds would have been bigger. She wouldn't have those little diamonds in it. But I'm just kind of giving you an idea. It would have been more big like that. She loved stuff like that. And she loved diamonds. Diamonds were her favorite. So she would have had, ooh, sorry about that. She would have had her ring set up in here like so. You know, her jewelry in here. Maybe she would have had this in here. And remember, if she had something like this, it would have been gold. It would have not been sterling. Yeah. She had something like that. Okay, guys. Well, God bless. And I'll see you next time. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to be doing any more jewelry videos. But once the weather gets warm, I'll start doing some more garden. You know what? I don't even know if I'm going to be doing the garden videos now because I'm not staying here. So, all of that's just going to, I don't even think I'm going to be doing any of that. I guess I can do one or two plants or something on the front porch or something. I don't know. I have a beautiful back sunroom with the a screen-in porch is what it's called. It's beautiful. It's huge. It is gorgeous. It has this beautiful like Mexican brick floor, like the terracotta floor. Is to die for. Although I can't show it much, but I could do plantings and stuff, I don't know. Because I had planned to do a beautiful garden here, vegetable and flowers, and bring in a lot of green plants. But now that I'm not going to stay here, maybe the guy will move because he's just renting a room. But I think another neighbor told me he's been here for 3 years, and the owner's been in that house for 8 years. So I don't think they're going anywhere. But I don't know. This guy cuts wood almost every day, and Christmas, he cut wood the whole entire day. He took a break. I thought he was done, and he came back. So almost the whole. Who would disturb it? And it's so beautiful and peaceful here. He's the only one that's disturbing the neighborhood. Who would make all that noise on a Christmas day? Like people had their families over. I mean, like that's just horrible. He's so inconsiderate and selfish. And then I said, well, he got it out the way. He shouldn't be chopping any more wood for another week. So that following day, he chopped wood the whole day again. Oh my gosh. I've been having a lot of migraines, And then like once or twice, I get up to go to the thrift store, but then I can't stay in the thrift store that long because of my pain levels. So it doesn't even make any sense to get up and go. I'm just kind of stuck in here, just dealing with that noise. It's sad. He shouldn't be allowed to do it. I don't want to get the cops involved. I just don't want to. I'm just not going to sign another lease. This is, you know what? This is just not the house for me. This is not a Victorian house anyway. It doesn't have like a beautiful grand fireplace. So I guess this is just a stopping ground. And, you just got to move until you get it right. That's where I'm at. I got to move until I get it right. Just like when you're dating, you got to keep moving till you get it right. So, yeah. And I'm great with packing. Nothing broke. Nothing broke. I think one thing broke, and that was because I broke it. I pulled it when I took it out the box. I was pulling it and doing something to it, and I broke it. And I don't even remember what that was because I threw it out. Yeah, oh yeah, other thing broke. I had a beautiful planner with those little men that stand around the pottery piece. Um, and it has a centerpiece. You put the candle. One of the heads broke off. Yeah, so I just gave it to one of the guys who would help move it. I don't like to keep anything that's broke. Um, so he said he could do something with it, so I let him take it. But other than that, nothing broke. So I don't mind packing again. I gave all my boxes away for free to other people who were moving, and so I have to get more boxes. But I'll probably start packing late this summer, and then maybe I'll start doing some videos when I'm packing because those videos seem to be interesting too. Uh, it's nothing to declutter. All my stuff is pretty much decluttered. I got everything kind of category organized and in its little space, you know. Yeah. Anyway, God bless. God bless, and I'll see you next time. Love you guys so much. Thanks. If you stayed to the end, God bless you.